press, so that means I make little guys and big guys and accessories. I guess I'll just get started.
Yeah. So today Victoria is actually going to be like live sculpting our little friend here, who was the mini that was voted on by our patrons over on the Patreon. They voted on it a couple of months ago, and then he's going to be all ready for next month. So you'll be able to grab this little guy and 3D print him for yourself. So Victoria, do you want to tell us a little bit about who you're sculpting and how you kind of came up with this design?
Sure. So this is a pangalan gadgeteer. And I got to do the concept art for this, which I don't usually get to because it was voted on by the lovely patrons. So that means that I did some very silly sketches to start off with. I really desperately wanted them to ride a hoverboard, but I thought that might be a bit too futuristic for Humblewood. So then we came with some more down-to-earth designs, or this one still flies, but it's more Humblewood. And we picked this guy.
Yeah, the guy on the left with the little coat, he's so cute, so cute, and I love his little his little prosthetic hands. Oh, amazing! So I hope we get to revisit that version of this chap at some point. But I also love this guy with his excellent punchy gloves.
He's just so ready.
Mm-hmm. I like his little smile that you've given him.
I wasn't sure if he should smile, actually. Do you think?
I like it. He looks really confident.
I love that for him. Yeah. You're right. We're gonna keep it.
He's like, I've got gadgets. I'm here to take care of business.
A smug gremlin, if you will.
Yeah,
we love them.
Yeah, so the Gadgeteer is a new class for 5e that we're developing over on the Patreon. It's kind of our take on the Artificer, but with more of a less of a magical and more of a mechanical bent. Although I think this guy is maybe using a little bit of both. He's channeling some magic into his cool gadget that he's wearing on his back. Wearable gadget's one of the main features. Yeah. So if you folks watching, if you have any questions, please drop them in the chat and they'll get passed on to us and we'll be able to answer them. But in the meantime, here's some questions I prepared earlier. So first up, Victoria. How did you get started making STLs?
So I went to school for animation, art, and design, and then I went more into like the video game track. And when you go into school for that, they always tell you like, oh, character art, it's so hard to get into. You'll never probably get into it for many years to come. So I'm like, okay, I'm going to do props and environments then. And then I got the chance to do STLs and basically characters full time. And it's been like such a dream come true.
It's like, the thing that they said you couldn't do, make little guys. Here you are getting to make little guys all the time. That's very cool. So like, what was it like kind of starting out learning 3D sculpting?
So the hardest thing is it's really different from character art because there's a lot of different considerations, because in character art you're like, oh, I need to make sure this runs fast on like phone and like all these other different types of devices. But for miniatures, it's more about like, does this actually work in the real world, like physically? So you have to think about like, how thick is this going to be, and like, will it snap off if somebody handles it too roughly, So it's interesting. It's such a different departure from what I was taught in school.
Yeah, kind of bridging like the digital and the physical space.
Yeah, I do love that about it. So it's been fun to learn.
Yeah, we had a question from Chris, which was, I've always wondered how mini sculptors ensure that their mini isn't a nightmare to paint. Do you have any design guidelines for your sculpts that ensure that they are easy/fun to paint?
Well, so basically we Disneyfy our boys.
Mm-hmm.
So they need big heads, they need big hands, they need big feet. Because, otherwise people can't see those small details like eyes and the
Mm-hmm.
mouth and stuff, which is really important for emoting, and people want to paint those.
Mm-hmm.
Also, when the boy has actual eyes underneath, I usually try to do like a pupil. It's not really a Humblewood thing, but like for big bads, because our marketing specialist, Ali, who does painting, told me that it's easier to do pupils if there's like a little divot. So that's something I've been keeping in mind lately.
Yeah. Oh, that's very cool. I like this guy's goggles, and I'm sure he underneath maybe has pupils, but yeah.
It's been a while. Let's see. Oh, there is. There they are.
Look at his little eyes. Oh, it's so cute. Yeah. When it comes to like sculpting kind of animals for Humblewood, like where do you get your inspiration? Where do you kind of pull from to make sure they're kind of recognizable as the animal that they're meant to be?
I highly recommend Animal Anatomy for Artists by Elliot Goldfinger. Just great animal anatomy. I'm constantly leafing through that thing to make sure that it's as accurate as possible. It's usually like for Humblewood, animal face crossed with human anatomy.
Mm-hmm.
So that's usually where I go to, just so it's easier to get because humans are built to stand on two legs and do all the crazy stuff they do with their hands. So
what can you talk us through what you're up to?
Oh, okay. So I really loved this particular piece. Where is it? Oh, I didn't put it in here. Anyway, he had a lot of smoke coming off the back of like this really cool gadget. And I'm like, oh, I want to put that in my mini. So this is it's supposed to be smoke. So I'm kind of modeling it after the aspect of fire, like that design that someone else sculpted. I forget the name of the sculptor, but I really love these like swirly, curly stuff going on. And also Duskbane, our other big bad. So I'm just trying to like emulate that smoke effect right now. So I just have the basic blocked out version, and I'm just adding some swirls to it, give it a bit more definition.
Yeah. So when you like pull up that little slider, is that like changing the height of the material?
Oh no! So this opens up how big the brush is.
Oh,
so
okay.
That's a big stroke, or just my little teeny tiny stroke.
Oh, okay. Yeah, and then you can like raise or lower things in there.
I don't usually change the strength actually, but so what this is, so if you you sculpt, and then there's a smooth brush to help smooth away some of the detail. So it just like is popped up with a hotkey, so you don't see it on the screen, but I am changing it constantly back and forth.
I imagine if you're doing this hundreds of thousands of times a day, you maybe want to have those hotkeys.
Oh yeah, I have a bunch of hotkeys for this memorized, because otherwise it would be quite the thing to bring up the brush palette all the time.
So yeah, you showed off one of the like Duskbane there, and you've sculpted a lot of really cool minis. Which is your favorite that you've sculpted at Hit Point?
Oh, my favorite mini. That would be Staywin, actually, from the Big Bad book. She's just she has like really cool like waves around her. And that was like a big challenge. But I think my favorite part about sculpting her was that she was a bit of a bigger gal. So it was just so nice to do like a different body type than the norm.
Yeah, like I love her art as well. Like she's our big, beautiful water elemental, sad goddess, heartbroken goddess. She's fantastic. And I'm trying to remember who did the art for Saiwen.
Yeah, she's so cool. I think like the water turned out really well.
Yeah, it was Lauren Walsh did the cover art. Yeah, and I really love the like mini version of her as well. And
Thank you.
Yeah, like she's just so statuesque and like tall and broad and just powerful. She's fantastic.
Yeah, such a commanding mini, I love that about her.
Yeah, you drop Saiwen on the table, people sit up straight.
Exactly.
Yeah. Do you get to see a lot of your minis in print?
Every time I do like a little dance. It makes me so happy. I have seen quite a few, mostly Humblewood, but I'm always happy to see a big bad out there in the wild.
Mm-hmm. I know that some people have been printing floral dragons as well, which has been very cool to see.
Oh yeah, I love seeing all the peonies. They're so pretty.
So Simon's your most your kind of favorite mini. How about like the most complicated? Maybe not your least favorite, but the most challenging mini that you've sculpted.
Well, I have a picture of this one. So that would be Golly Thank. He went through so many revisions because the concept art originally for him, they didn't really have like a design for the mech because it was the background, so it wasn't as important. But trying to figure out how all these different pieces like went together, but also could still move. Like I know it doesn't actually move as a mini, but like you want to make the illusion that it could move. So just like trying to wrap my monkey brain around like, okay, how do you make it so that it won't like interfere with different pieces and stuff? But I think it turned out really well, and I'm really happy with like the end result.
Yeah, I love your Golly Thank mini, especially that you can like take Golly Thank out of the mech and put him back in. Like, that's so cute.
Yeah, I also love how like on the seat, because like there's a little insert that's like a seat instead of Golly Thank. He has a little teddy bear on it. I snuck him in. I'm just like so glad he's in there.
Yeah, like even like at the tiny scale, you're able to like hide little guys in the minis.
Little guys upon little guys. That's the goal.
Yeah, my favorite is the little mouse you put on the back of Zifferblatt, the grandfather clock big bad.
Oh yeah, I love him. That was so cute. That mouse is actually reused from the Pie Rat mini. I just took the rat off that and then stuck him there. So I guess it's a crossover technically now.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah, it could be. Pirates versus grandfather clock. Yeah, so you mentioned like reusing things, and I know you've talked about this before in some of the like behind the scenes stuff we've put on the Patreon, but like I understand that you have some kind of library of things, and you're able to kind of you're not starting from scratch every time. Like how do you start out a project and use that kind of base that you have?
So I guess I'll just talk through this guy. So I have I had done a pangalan armadillo kind of character before. So I usually bring in just the body as like the base, and then I build on top of it. So like for clothes, you can do this thing, which is really cool. You can just solo out these pants. So let's say you want to add a very cute pocket in the back. So we can just make this kind of called a mask. And then we can just make some cool geometry from that I can make a pocket out of. And here's our pocket. But I also have like my library, so it's just like generic stuff like this belt buckle. I have used this belt buckle in every single mini that I have ever made, so count them up, but it's probably an anime boy's worth of belt buckles at this point.
They all shop at the same belt store.
They have great taste, the hip
it's
press belt store.
Yeah. Yeah, because like a belt buckle is a belt buckle. Like I imagine that's no need to reinvent the wheel every time.
And it's so small, right, too. So it's just great to like, the tool that I use, it's called a tool. So basically I can just load up my library. Oh, sorry. So I use my brushes. Yeah, so I have a bell, bird skull, like all these things are just things I've made before, and I can just drop them in to whatever I need. So a lot of feathers in Humblewood.
Yeah. Yeah. We've got a question from Ali. How did you begin learning how to 3D sculpt, and any tips for beginners who want to learn?
So I was taught in college. Yes, sorry. So, but I think the best way to learn now, because I didn't have like access to like Blender sculpting tools. Blender is a free software, and I highly recommend it. It's a bit of a learning curve to start, but there's a lot of tutorials because it's free and the community is so great. So I'd highly recommend that if you're ever just starting out.
Yeah, so this isn't Blender, right?
No. So this is ZBrush, the program we're using, and it's kind of the industry standard. And I've tried Blender, but it's basically like in an MMO when like things like just half a second, makes a difference. There's just a tiny, tiny lag, and for me, it just drives me nuts. So I love ZBrush because it's just that tiny bit faster.
Yeah, and I guess, but if you're starting out and you're just kind of doing it as a hobby, it makes sense to start with Blender.
It's just as good, I'd say, in like every other respect, especially for a beginner.
Nice. We have a question from M. Have you ever sculpted an anthropomorphic bear?
Oh, no, but now I really want to.
Well, no promises, but maybe in the future you'll get a chance to.
I am so excited. I don't think we've done a bear. Oh, we've done the gummy bear. Love that guy.
Yeah, Agar, the gummy bear.
I really loved him. I looked at a lot of like Brother Bear reference from Disney.
Mm-hmm.
They really know how to stylize a bear over there.
Yeah, the Disneyfication that you mentioned earlier. It's like learning from the masters.
It runs deep.
So I have a question here from Sebastian. When you're working from a 2D reference, like how do you sculpt details that aren't visible in the reference?
So if we're talking concept art, then I usually just have to go and gather my own. So it can be anything. Like I like to look at other people's sculpts. I like to look at real world reference. And then I just like to think about what would somebody want to paint in terms of texture. So then like it's just like fun to like go crazy on the texture and be like, okay, this is gonna look really great in a wash in the end when somebody paints this.
Yeah, because I imagine that like most of the time, especially on like big bads or something, you're mostly working from like a single piece of art, or maybe two if there's an interior piece that has a good pose. But it's mostly from the front. It's usually how our covers tend to be. So yeah, you just kind of get to go wild and use your imagination for what a lot of the backs and sides of these monsters are.
Well, usually where you're making dudes with clothes. So I love to look on Etsy. Like this is the Odinson LARP leather armor, great pics. Like, so this is the back, and I like that way I get like references of everything. Like if you're looking for clothes, it's just great to like basically go shopping and be like, okay, I want to put this on my character and this. And then when you look through their catalog, they have so many good pictures. So that's definitely something I'd recommend if someone's drawing clothes.
Top tip. Yeah. Another question from M. What is something or someone you'd be really excited to see in mini form?
Oh, Well, I'm always excited for different animals. I really want to make like a frog, like in gentleman's clothes. I'm hoping that one day we can make that happen in Humblewood.
Top hat frog, yeah.
Yes, top hat frog, Mr. Toad, but like Humblewood.
Oh, Mr. Toad. Okay, yeah. I'm just gonna write that down.
Excellent.
Yeah. And of like the things that we have at Hit Point that like don't have a mini yet, are there any that you wish you could minify?
Oh, I got one. So for Heckna, this guy never got a mini, but I really think the toy maker would make a great mini because, like, okay, look at that head. You can like take out that head and make it like those turny things at like the playground, where when you're doing tic-tac-toe, it's like a barrel and you can like swing it around. We could probably do that, but like in 3D. And then like when you print it, you could actually at your table like change his face.
Turn his head around. Yeah.
It's so cool. So I just think that would be such a cool mini.
All the little draws as well. Like he would be excellent in mini form.
Wood texture is so much fun. So it's like, yes, let me make a completely wooden automaton man. I would love it.
Noted. Yeah, like content department taking notes. Yeah.
Let's bring out my ideas to finally bring them to Verity.
Yeah.
Oh, my auto saved. That's never good.
Oh,
it didn't
yeah.
crash. Yay.
Yeah. Are crashes a major headache? Is that a thing?
Well, like in theory it auto saves, but sometimes it's been a while.
Mm-hmm. Like, please don't embarrass us on stream.
I'll do my best.
No, not you, ZBrush.
Oh, okay, ZBrush. Come on. Have our backs.
Yeah. Okay. Oh, I've got a question from Brian. What are some of the considerations you need to keep in mind when sculpting smaller minis versus much bigger ones?
So like we're Disneyfying them to the nth degree that time because, you know, they're very small. So you got to make sure that you're not doing things usually smaller than 1 millimeter is like the standard, because once they're smaller than 1 millimeter, it's really hard for the machine to print that size. So what I usually do is I drag a mini in that I know will print, and I'll make sure nothing is like smaller than that mini.
That's a clever way of doing it. And like, so when this guy gets printed, what size will he be?
The interesting thing about ZBrush is that it does not work on a point-based system. So usually in a 3D software, like you know where every single point of this is because it's on like a grid. But in ZBrush, it's more of like a vibes-based system. So it's just like when you're ready, it's like I will guess how big this is. So I could go right now and be like, okay, ZBrush, how big is this? And ZBrush says he is 71 millimeters. Now he can't be that size.
Yeah, he's pretty tall.
So what I usually do is I bring in a 25 millimeter base that I know is 25 millimeters. I scale this boy up so he's on the base, and then I know when he's at the right size. You have to do these workarounds because ZBrush is like, I don't know how big it is. You don't know how big it is. We just have to guess together.
I think you want a 7 centimeter tall pangalan. Sure.
Maybe 70. I don't know. I can't do math, says ZBrush.
Yeah. And so you've also sculpted some like pretty chunky, big, quote unquote miniatures that are kind of gargantuan. Are there any considerations you have to make when you're like going really big?
There's just a lot more real estate on those boys. So you got to make sure that the texture scales appropriately. So like you don't want to be leaving blank space if you can, because like you have all that space. It's like now you can finally go crazy. People can actually see this. So it's fun to just like go crazy. Because I remember the Conqueror Worm was one of the first like huge boys I got to work on. And it was just so much fun to finally be able to do like the little tiny textures that you can't do on him.
He's so gross. Complimentary.
Thank you. That was my goal.
Yeah, it's such a terrible worm in the best possible way.
They're all my little guys, so you know, I'm glad he's grown up to be the nasty, gross boy I always knew he could be.
I maintain that he is the most dangerous of all the big bads, voted most likely to succeed, especially with your mini.
Excellent. Yeah, he's very like xenomorphy, isn't he?
Got another question from M. Is there a mini you'd like to see as a Tarrasque-sized mini?
Oh, I want a little fluffy guy to be that big. So I don't like, maybe like if we could do like just a giant cat, like just make Baudelaire that big somehow.
Yeah,
some
big
shenanigans.
Big Baudelaire. He'd probably be down for that. He'd probably find some magic way of being as big as he thinks he ought to be.
Exactly. Like if he had the drive to do it, he would definitely be able
If he had thumbs, he would be that big. He would have found a way.
I believe in him.
He's only held back by thumbs.
We're very lucky in that case.
Yeah, I mean, I love a kaiju, and I'm hopeful that there will be some more kaiju style, big, big fellas for you to sculpt coming up eventually.
Yes.
Yeah.
We need our Mothra, our hit
Mhm.
point press Mothra.
Yeah, I love Mothra.
Me too.
We're all just Mothra fans at Hit Point Press. Yeah. So when you're like sculpting, like right now you're kind of on the gadgety thing he's wearing. Is there a different way that you sculpt like the texture of metal versus fur versus wood or smoke? What are your kind of considerations there?
So for the smoke, it's very organic, right? So I can just like vibe on that. But like for some of the pieces like this, it's called box modeling usually. So basically you're working with like the actual like geometry of the piece. So you can see here like I've like made a bevel and just to make it look more like construction-y and boxy. And then like, but the thing is, because it's going to be printed, we can never have like really harsh edges like right here, because that's like just an infinitely small point. So we have to make sure that like there's always edges. So it is kind of organic in its own way too, you know? So that it's not too different, but like the beginning is a bit different, I guess is the answer.
Like you start out with a more rigid shape and go from there.
Exactly. Yeah.
I did like when you turned his eye into an avocado. That was very, very cool.
I'm glad I can avocado things for you.
So this bit is well, that bit was like red. So it's like a separate like lump blob. Like how do these connect to each other? Like what are the building blocks you're working with?
Okay, yeah, definitely. So as you can see, we're lucky because this time I actually organized my project instead of having 5 million layers. So I usually like put them in different categories. So here's the body. So that's all. They're separate pieces, as you can see. Like, this was like the original mini that I based it off of, and then I keep the eyes separate, the ears separate, the body separate, and then like everything can be toggled off and on if I need to. So,
nice.
Yeah. It's good to work with small pieces when you're actually sculpting.
We've got a question from someone called Emily. When you put a lot of detail into a character, does that all translate to a mini, or does the mini lose some of the details that you spend a lot of time designing?
Oh, yeah. I try not to because, it's kind of wasted work when it doesn't show up in the final print, but you just can't help it sometimes. So, like we try to keep that you can go micro detail when you're sculpting, right? Like you can do skin pores and stuff, but there's just no point. So I usually stay at like kind of like the mid-level detail. So once I get to that point, I usually stop sculpting because nobody's ever just going to see it.
Yeah, that's. I guess that makes sense. So you can move on to the next fun little guy.
Exactly.
We've got a question from Brian. Are there any dream collaborators you'd like to sculpt minis for?
Ooh, I don't know. Like it's more like dream styles. Like I'd love to do some more chunky stylized stuff, kind of in our like fool's gold. Or like then of course the other way entirely, I'd also like to do like super detailed, too. So it's just
kind of hyper realistic or super stylized.
I just want to do them all basically.
Yeah, when it comes to like deciding on a style for minis, like what sort of considerations are there?
Well, usually if we think about like the property first, so like considering Fool's Gold, right? Like that one was a bit more stylized, cartoony. So we got some stylized people to work on it. Like Thomas Chu, I believe, did quite a bit of the minis for that. They're great, by the way. Definitely check him out on Instagram and ArtStation. And yeah, so like it's just basically like what is the style of the actual main project and book that goes with these minis.
Yeah, I guess like Humblewood is more cute, and then what would you say is the kind of style for Big Bads?
I'd say it's like stylized realism. Like we're not going as crazy as some minis do out there. Like they go full detail and they're amazing, but like I don't have the time for that, so it's a bit more stylized for us.
Nice. We've got a rush of questions coming in. A question from M. What is the most challenging body part to sculpt versus what is your favorite?
Oh, The most challenging is the arm. Like what is going on at your elbow, man? Like there's bones that cross over, but sometimes they don't, and it's just like every time I have to pull out my textbook, and I still don't know what's going on down there.
Magic.
Oh yeah,
Yeah,
basically. Like
yeah. Elbows. How do they work? No one knows.
certainly not me, and I'm the one sculpting them every day.
Yeah, and how about your favorite?
Oh, I love doing the goofy face. Look at this boy. Look at that goofy smile.
It's so good.
It's the best time.
The schnoz is excellent.
Peak schnoz.
Mm-hmm. And then a question from Emily. Do you prefer an action pose or a more natural pose in your minis?
Always action. Because, it just makes it more engaging, I find. And then it's easier to tell a story when they're like doing like a big, broad pose that you can really easily see from a distance. Also better for the table.
Yeah, I know you and I have had discussions about like when picking poses about table like dynamics, and it's like, oh, this will look really good if it's at eye level versus this will look really good if it's on the table, kind of down in front of you, and like picking those things. And I think there's like benefits to both. But yeah, it's like the things that you have to consider.
Like who's gonna where they're gonna display them, right? Like some people like to put them on their shelf, so it's like, oh, well, that front view would be better. But then sometimes it's like I will only see their head, So
yeah. A question from LeBlanc. On average, how long does each mini take?
Oh, so this guy, I have him down. He usually will take around 20 hours, but sometimes faster. And then if we're talking bigger minis, usually 25 to like 30 if it's a gargantuan boy.
And a follow-up question, what's the longest you've ever spent on one mini?
We didn't have time limits. And I once, I think, spent 40 hours. And at that point, we were like, okay, we need to come up with a time limit for these guys. That was Saywin because I went a bit crazy on the water because I just love her. So
yeah, she deserves it.
Exactly, yeah. Right? That was my thought too.
Yeah. Yeah. So how long have you spent on this guy so far?
Oh, he was about 7 hours to get him to this point. And then it probably won't take that long. I think he should actually be done at like 16 maybe. I believe in him.
Yeah. I believe in you. And it seems like you've got a kind of, you pretty much know from experience what you're going to be doing like when you start out, I imagine.
Yeah, because like Humblewood is a bit simpler too, so like it just makes things go by a bit faster. Like Big Bads is like a little bit longer because you have to actually think about texture, but these boys are smooth, so we're good.
Smooth boys. Yeah. It's very mesmerizing watching you work.
Oh, thank you. I think.
I just keep getting lost. I'm like, oh, ooh. We've got a question from M. What Humblewood race are you most drawn to play?
Ooh, to play. I want to be a crow. I want to steal shiny things, and I want to be a menace. Just the way I am.
Corvum supremacy.
All the way.
Have you had much chance to play Humblewood?
I haven't had a chance, unfortunately. I did play a bear because he was a barbarian in another campaign.
A barbarian.
Yes. You get me.
Yep. Yeah, we need to have more Humblewood in-house playtesting.
Yes, I'd love that. There's so many new little guys I want to play as.
What animal would you most like to sculpt / see in Humblewood?
Oh, Oh, there's so many. Okay, I'm going to say two things. I'm cheating. I want bats and I want frogs, Verity. Make it happen.
Bats and frogs. Okay, writing it down. Bats and frogs. I mean, I'm not going to argue with you with bats. Bats are the best.
The cutest. They eat 4,000 mosquitoes a night if they're not eating moths on average.
Yeah. I'm very pro bat. I'm also very pro moth. I would love to see a moth. And then you could have like a bat and a moth in the same party, and it could be tense.
Ooh, I like that.
Ooh. These little
insects. Sorry,
we don't have any insect player races so far. So the next frontier. Mostly they're just like beasts of burden and / pests / farm animals in Humblewood.
Oh, the ranger classes. Going to use some bugs maybe in the future. That'd be fun.
Yeah, your swarm of bugs helping you out. We've got some giant bugs that are always fun.
Ooh.
Yeah, we've got another question from Emily. Is it difficult to do furry creatures as a mini?
So it was until I was like, you know what? Fur can be a brush. And then I made a brush and it's been easier ever since.
Yeah. that is, work smarter, not harder. That's the...
I'm not telling you how long it took me to figure that one out, but yeah.
So this chap is a pangalan, right? So how are you going to tackle the kind of scaly tail?
Oh, okay. So there's this really cool thing you can do in ZBrush where you can take like one model and you can like make little instances all over. And it's usually used for armor. So it's like you take one like little tiny link and then you kind of just like wherever there's one of these little squares, it will show up on it. I think I could maybe like show you with just, if I remember how to do it. Oh, and if it won't crash the computer, please don't crash. Yeah, like this.
Oh.
So I'm thinking I'll make like a scale and I'll make him repeat all over just in the sections I want. Because I think the bottom is smooth, if I'm remembering correctly.
So we'll have to look up more references of pangolins.
That is true.
Underside of pangolin, Google search.
Yeah, it's kind of hard to find the underside of animals. You'd be surprised. Like back view of this specific animal, they're like, no, we don't have back view. We don't know what you're talking about.
They only walk towards us. Well, I love that like it's mostly used for armor, and yet you're using it for like armored spikes on on a creature, like natural armor. There's something really poetic about that.
Oh, there is a scale option too. I just don't think it would work. So yeah, it's used for anything that like repeats all over like this. You know, is there a scale? I think there is. I don't think it's the right size, but you know,
not his scale.
Not his scale, but
that's cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, ZBrush doesn't know what size anything is, but it can do scale.
I guess it knows relative scale.
Yeah, so I think that's how it works. Again, like I'm not a math person, so it's all just vibes for me. And I'm like, as long as we can vibe together, that works.
You're on the same wavelength.
Exactly.
Yeah, I imagine since you're often having to work out the backs of creatures, you get to decide how pants work with tails in Humblewood.
Oh yeah, like usually it's just like, you know, do some wrinkles around it. Then, but like one time I think I did like a little cute button closure, like you know those little like pants that little kids wear. That was cute. He wouldn't see it on this one, or else I would add it. Yeah. Also, his pocket is like, oh, I should probably delete that because it's in his tail. Sorry, pocket. We loved you.
You were a nice example. Okay, a fantastic question from Brian. Probably the most important question we've had all night. If you could give one character you've sculpted a little top hat, who would it be?
Oh man, I don't know. I love them all. My sons.
All of them top hats.
Yeah, basically. Like I'm just like Daniel would love a good top hat. Like Justin Tanner would complain about it, but you know he'd be happy to put it on.
Yeah. Like just is there any mini that wouldn't be improved by a little top hat?
Should we just make a little top hat so you can just print it and put it on whoever they want? I think we should. My new goal.
Release the top hat.
The top hat cut.
Yeah.
Yes, best question. 10 out of 10. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Brian. A question from Bailey. Are there any other cool tricks you've learned to make sculpting easier, like making for a brush?
Ooh, You know, the minute you ask me, I can't remember. It's like, no, this has always been this difficult. Okay, so this is a good one. So if you're ever also looking for like a character creator thing, there is a free program called Make Human, and basically anybody can download this. It's free. You can just make a human. Like it has different options for like how big you can make any part of their body. It's like making a character creator basically, and it's a great like base. So if you ever want to just make a character for like reference purposes, highly recommend it. I use it usually as my base for any human characters, but I have to make the head and hands and feet comically large. They look like little aliens, but it's a good starting point because, you know, then I don't have to like add fingers and toes and stuff. They're already all there.
So rather than starting from kind of like, here's an oval, and then I'm going to put another oval and make the nose, you kind of go from here's a head.
Yeah, like so usually I start off in the Make Human program and I'm like, how can I get these features as close as possible to the concept art? And then like usually it's it's not very close because it makes people look a little bit bug-eyed out the box. But it gets me there.
Yeah. That's a neat trick. So when you're sculpting, I've noticed you've kind of like hopped around from different spots. Is that your normal kind of workflow?
Oh yeah, like we're like a dog that sees a squirrel, sculptors. Like it's good because you don't want to get married to any one section because there is always the risk of like, oh, I've been working on the hand and I'm at like hour 19 and I have to bring this model in, you know. So it's just good to keep me honest.
Yeah, and I guess you want to like consider the mini as a whole. So it's like, is it all working together? Like right now, you're kind of making sure that this fits and makes sense.
Exactly. Yeah, and also like, so like basically the more, so you see how all the polygons we're using right now to make up this shirt. The more I add of these, the harder it is to move this piece around. You know, with my brush, like less of them come with it. So you want to make sure you start big and broad and go detailed. So it's good to do them all at once, right? So they can be moved easily.
Yeah. So apart from 3D sculpting, is there any other kind of art that you enjoy doing? Art or craft? Yeah.
I love good arts and crafts. I like doing 2D art. I do some at Hit Point Press. It's always fun. And I like to sew. I like to paint little wooden boxes that I find at thrift shops. It's a good time.
Adorable.
Thank you. I'm really trying to get into my cottagecore witch phase, you know. So
I love this for you. I believe in you.
Thank you, Verity.
I'm here to see the pictures on our Discord.
I will one day evolve.
Yeah. Or maybe the cottagecore witch was inside you all along.
Maybe. I love that.
We have another question from Emily. Is there any mini that you've done in the past that you wish you could go back and redo?
Oh man, all of Heckna. Those were the first ones I did, and I look back at them. I'm like, what were you doing? I look at the files; they're like a mess. I'm just like, oh god.
We all learned a lot on Heckna.
That's true. It's very true. But man, some of those boys are rugged.
Yeah, maybe there'll be a Heckna too, and
get the toy maker in there. redo some of those. Like, but they do print well, I have to say. Like working with the manufacturers and stuff, like the final product, it is amazing what they were able to pull off. Like they look so good.
Yeah, I remember seeing some of the the in-between steps for the between your model and the production model, and some of them were a bit funky, but they definitely came out nice in the end.
Yeah, our former mini lead Graham, he really championed getting those sorted, and I applaud him for it.
So when you're like producing a mini for like home printing, kind of anyone with a 3D printer versus manufacturer, what sort of considerations do you have to take into account?
So when you're printing from home, you're using a 3D printer which has a build plate that basically is vertical. So, what has it done? It does this sometimes. Don't worry about that. So you're printing from the top down, kind of thing, and like also it like prints from supports. So like basically you just have to consider the fact that like it's going to need a lot of support or not, like make less texture or not. But then for manufacturing, they use molds, which basically is they have like a cast line and they're going to cut your model in half at some point. So it's kind of like if it will 3D print, usually it will be okay for mold casting, but there is always going to be some revisions. But it's usually better to let the manufacturers make those because they know their machines better than I do. So I just try to make sure it will print, and then they take it from there.
Yeah, and since we sell STLs and we sell minis, it's nice that you can kind of have these different options.
Exactly. Yeah. So again, they do great work. So I have no complaints.
Yeah.
Thank you, manufacturers.
Thank you. Yeah. Have you painted any of your minis that you've sculpted?
Oh, I really want to, but I don't have like the paints or anything. I did paint like a horse once when I was small, and all the paint flaked off immediately. So I'm like a little bit scared of it ever since.
You just need some primer, and also Ali.
Yeah,
Ali
and Chris,
Ali and Chris,
Brian.
Yeah,
yes. They need to teach all of us how to paint minis. They've promised it, but we haven't done it yet.
Yeah, we need to bully Ali into doing another mini painting stream because that was really fun.
That was amazing. I loved it so much.
Maybe we can get a print of this guy and we can we can force her to wow us. It'll be really fun.
Yes.
And also teach us. Yeah. Yeah, because I know you've done some like colored versions of a few of the minis. What's the sort of process for that?
Oh, so that's in here. So basically, any brush in here, you can turn off like the sculpting. So that's like the Z add. Don't ask me about the names. And then you can turn on RGB. So that will let you paint. So then you can just paint the boy. That is not.
You can have some little cute little socks. Very
give him a little. There we go. And then hopefully I can turn this off so I can actually see what I'm doing. It's not red and horrifying.
There we go.
I think we're good. Yeah, there we go.
Yeah. That's very cool. Yeah, because I know like for like colored minis or even just some like really neat renders, it's always fun to see them all colorful.
Oh yeah, and it's fun to like, it's basically like doing painting, like 2D painting. So, but you get to like do it all over the model, all over the walls. So yeah. I really like it.
And unlike kind of physical mini painting, you're not kind of like working with a teeny tiny little brush and getting underneath the...
Yeah, I can just get all up in this guy's business and I don't have to, squint or cramp my fingers doing it. So that's nice too.
The advantages.
Digital art.
I love his little smiley face sock.
Oh no, he blurred. I just won't touch that sock. We're gonna move to this sock to save him.
Yeah. So when you did the like kind of concept art for this little fella, so when you're kind of like designing clothes for Humblewood creatures, people, what are your sort of touchstones?
So like I'm always looking at my leather armor people on Etsy that I want to buy their armor, but I don't have the money. So I'm just like doing my fantasy shopping. But it's kind of like the same principle. Like you notice how like animated characters don't have like the most detailed of clothes. So when I'm usually designing them, I make them a little bit less detailed with less accessories because those things usually won't show up very well. You kind of have to like pick your battles. Like if this accessory is really important to the mini, I'll make sure it's in it. But like you just can't show all of them, even though we have such lovely concept art. So it's like when I make them, I'm like, okay, how can we like do the bare bones costume that this guy needs, you know?
What is the vibe of this costume?
Exactly, like big hood, silly aviator goggles, of course. Yeah. We need them.
Big punch gloves, yes.
Exactly.
Yeah. I also like watching you do this foot. I'm like, I don't think I've ever considered what pangalan's feet look like.
Oh yeah, they need to be like fatter. We need fat feet because like they need to be able to stand. So he's way too froggy right now. And also these need to like come out because they have like huge claws.
Like,
they're big boys. So it's gonna probably look like that in the end.
Yeah, I guess making sure that people aren't falling over is probably one of the key things.
It's part of the reason for their beautiful wide duck feet.
Yeah, strong, powerful stance.
Exactly. Like they're not going to be able to find shoes that they can fit in, but they won't fall over. Most of them don't wear shoes either, actually, now that I'm thinking about it.
Yeah, in Humblewood, not a lot of shoes. It's there's a lot of like kind of leg greaves and leg wraps and things like that are really fun.
This is why boots are. We need to get the hoverboard going because then we can do those like fun neon leg wraps and it'll just be in the style already.
Yeah, Back to the Future Humblewood. Yeah.
Next module. Let's make it happen.
Sci-fi. Let's go.
I would love that.
I mean, these are kind of giving some 80s leg warmers a little bit.
I just like I'm always trying to push my leg warmer agenda, I guess.
Yes.
You know.
Pro leg warmer.
Keep them warm.
We have a question from Brian, and this will probably be our last question because we're coming in on 8 o'clock. Are there any vibes you feel are underrepresented among Hit Point Press minis? Scary, cute, funny? What do you want to see more of?
Oh, I always want to make a funny mini. We have like the goose. It's like our most like sought after mini is like that like duck from Fool's Gold.
Oh, the Doom Duck?
The Doom Duck. Yeah, people love that thing.
Yeah. Put a duck in a hat. Success.
Should we just do a line of minis that are just like cute animal in hat?
I mean, frog in a top hat. We were talking about that.
I just feel so if we make that happen, I think we will finally meet our funny quota, you know. Okay.
Animals in hats, the new role-playing game. We just need to develop it. It won't be hard.
Exactly. You know, it probably won't take you much time. No.
Yeah, no, not at all. Yeah. Well, we are rounding the corner on 8 o'clock. Any kind of last thoughts you want to share with the folks?
I just am so glad people came out to watch me sculpt. Thanks, guys. Had a great time, and thank you, Verity. It's been great chatting with you.
Yeah, it's fun to chat. It's fun to watch you do your thing. It's really cool to get to see the process. And thank you everyone for joining us and asking great questions and watching this little guy take shape. And yeah, we'll just kind of chill and watch the last little bit of sculpting, and then we'll just say goodbye. So
I wish I could animate, have him wave.
Yeah. The next step. All right. So thank you so much, everyone. I'm going to say goodbye. Goodbye. Thank you.
Good night.